Open up the town of Shingatig's meeting for April. If we could all please stand for the invocation of Brother Gene.
We kind of have a trial, Lord, tonight. We have a lot on our hearts and our minds, Lord. But first of all, we want to praise you and give you thanks for all you do for us, Lord, and the many, many blessings that you allow us to enjoy here living on Shingatig Island, Lord. Our great employees, Lord, our great volunteers. Lord, we want to pray for our own military, Lord, our young men and young women. Lord, be with them, give them strength, Lord. And we certainly want to pray for the family of the young serviceman who lost his life this past Wednesday, Lord. And just be with the family. Lift them up, Lord. We always don't understand things, Lord, but we just pray that you will see them through these trying times, Lord. We certainly want to pray for the people of Ukraine, Lord, the men and women that are not just on the front lines, Lord, but those that are helping feed people, Lord, and Lord, just trying to do their best to live that day. Lord, we can pray for them, Lord. We just don't know what it is to live through that, Lord. We just pray for a swift end to it, Lord. We don't know how, Lord, but Lord, we pray that you will intercede in this matter, Lord. And Lord, we pray tonight as we look through our agenda, Lord, that you will be with us and guide us, Lord, and give us insight on what we need to do to help our town along, Lord. And again, Lord, we just praise you and thank you, and just go with us and guide each and every one of us, Lord, and guide us and direct us. For we ask these things in Jesus' precious name. For his sake, amen.
Amen.
The pledge
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Mr. Talbert, if you would read the rules for public hearings.
Yes. I would stress to everyone that these are the rules for the public hearing. There will be opportunity to speak on other matters a little later. And there's a different set of rules for speaking other than the public hearing. Rules for public comment at public hearings. All attendees wishing to speak shall sign up on the provided roster. Speakers must preface all comments by stating their name and their 911 address. Comments shall be limited to 4 minutes per speaker. Attorneys representing clients will be limited to 10 minutes. A speaker cannot reserve or transfer time to another speaker. Speakers must not use profanity, threatening language, or otherwise be abusive to council or committee members. Signs and placards are not allowed inside the council chambers. Speakers shall not address specific personnel matters which involve individual employees in a public meeting. Members of council will not answer questions directly or engage with speakers. Specific questions shall be directed to the mayor, who shall at his discretion solicit a response from the appropriate staff member.
All righty. You'll have in your packet the note from Mr. Rosenberger. Ray, did you want to present that or just have it in our packet?
Good evening to Mr. Mayor and the Commissioners. Supervisors, I should say. I'd love to call you supervisors, but I can't. Councilman. Just a word or two prior to my reading the form that you have in front of you. The Commission took into account some key issues adjacent or subject to the request for the permit. Some of those, and I'll just hit the major topics as to what they were. The fact that it's adjacent to Howley Wilton Smith Nature Trail and the impact it may have on that. The traffic issues. We've had issues with that span of a road prior to the high school in the past where we've even limited parking. Lighting concerns from the citizens. 24/7 access. The traffic access and exit from the facility if it were to be built. There was no stormwater management plan presented, but the concern, again, of the Planning Commission was whatever runoff flooding issues might be associated with it. Since it would require a significant amount of fill, in fact, the indication at the time was over 3 feet. And, of course, the comprehensive plan itself. The plan itself addresses the compatibility within that mixed-use residential area. So having said that, to the mayor, Leonard and council members, from Ray Rosenberger, Planning Commission Chairman, dated April 4th, 2022. Subject, conditional use permit. At its March 8th, 2022 meeting, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on the subject of an application by Mr. Reginald Stubbs for the conditional use permit for the proposed construction of a commercial storage facility on Lewis Street. After hearing the comments of several speakers on the subject, Commission members discussed the issues involved, considered the proposal. The Commission then voted unanimously to not recommend Mr. Stubbs' application for approval to the Council. The Planning Commission therefore does not recommend approval of Mr. Stubbs' application to the Council. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Mike, do you want to read it into the minutes, or just let what's in the packet stand?
We can let what's in the packet. You have the packet in front of you. I think
Yeah. We have the reports.
you had the report, so
Right.
I think you can just open the public hearing.
Okay. All right, we're gonna open the public hearing for Stub application for a conditional use permit. We'll have public comment, starting with Mr. Webb.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ken Webb. I live at 4495 Main Street, which is directly across from the intersection of Daisy Street and Main Street. My wife and I have a number of concerns, and probably everyone is aware of all the areas that have been previously mentioned. Traffic, and if you will indulge me for a few moments, I'll try to quickly read through what I've taken the time to spell check here. As homeowners and residents of 4495 Main Street, we would like to express for the record our objection and concerns in regard to the proposed construction of a massive storage facility requested on a plot of land located between Daisy Street and Burgess Lane in Chincoteague. As I mentioned, our residence is right across the street from the intersection of Daisy and Main. The proposed project raises numerous concerns for us as well as our neighbors. The amount of new traffic created by such a commercial enterprise is problematic based on the current level of traffic on Main Street. It's no secret that much of the traffic on this portion of Main Street doesn't adhere to the posted sign speed limit. With the amount of traffic this facility would create, we are concerned that the possibility of collisions is very real, with vehicles pulling in and out. There's somewhat of a kind of a blind spot up there by the softball field. Its location near the high school would also pose problems for students walking, riding bikes, scooters, etc., to and from school. Parents in their cars coming to school to pick up their kids at the end of the school day often line up on Main Street as far down as Daisy Street, waiting to be able to pick their students up. The proposed entrance to the facility is to be Daisy Street, which is a single-lane street. Large trucks, trailers, boats, and other oversized vehicles will have a difficult time, if not impossible, entering smoothly Daisy from Main. Stormwater runoff is a concern. Main Street floods and retains standing water after heavy rains. We consistently notice town employees trying to facilitate drainage at a location approximately 60 feet north of Daisy Street that often clogs up with pine needles and leaves and other debris. So the gentleman from the town had to come up and fish that out, and then that lets the water dissipate. That's understanding that to meet construction allowance, there would have to be at least 3 feet of fill dirt added to the plot. Should the facility be constructed, there's a major concern for storm water runoff. The storm water would either run off the adjoining properties or have to be captured in retention ponds, which would serve as excellent breeding grounds for mosquitoes and other unwanted wildlife. Neighboring properties face a strong possibility of large amount of stormwater runoff flooding their yards. Lighting is also necessary, full-time lighting to prevent criminal activity. When there are football games at the high school, the whole neighborhood is illuminated, but that's only for the duration of the game and whatever follow-up activity is necessary. The lighting for this enterprise would have to be on to prevent criminal activity. Of illumination is certainly acceptable for football games, but not all night, every night. We're also concerned that there might be vermin which are attracted to storage units. We currently rent a storage unit on Route 75 out on the way to T's Corner, and can attest to the fact that storage units attract vermin looking for food and shelter. If commercial dumpsters were to be located for renters' trash receptacles, they would serve as an additional attractive draw for vermin. Property values are also a concern. I know we've all received our updated county assessment on real estate properties, and I would be fearful that if people would want to come into our neighborhood and try to look at properties, if this behemoth of a facility would be in there, I think that would be pretty much of a deterrent for people wanting to buy. And my final point is the property's location abuts the very popular town's nature trail. Its proximity to the nature trail would be visible from the nature trail, detracting from the beauty of the trail and the experience of feeling that you are in a natural setting while still within the confines of the town. Also visible would be stored campers, boats, and other vehicles that renters may not be allowed to store at their home, giving the facility the look of a salvage yard. As one walks the nature trail, this would certainly be a further detraction from the beauty of the trail. This would be visible to also visitors and residents who regularly walk and bike up Main Street for exercise.
Excuse me, Mr. Webb, that's your 4 minutes.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you. Thank you for timing me.
Ms. Boot?
Ken's a little taller than I am. Okay. Hi, council members. My name is Rosie Moot. I live at 4492 Main Street on the island. I will be brief because I know that you have all the materials that you need. You've heard all of our complaints about how this will unfairly disrupt our lives and our worries about the precedent that it may set for the rest of the areas of the island. You've heard our plea that you uphold the zoning code and keep commercial businesses out of our residential areas. And you've seen our petition, which now contains the names of 336 residents, homeowners, business owners, and who are not in favor of this project. We are simply asking that you keep the residential area just what it is, residential. I'm here to implore you to just listen to the Planning Commission, listen to the residents, and listen to the voters who have put their trust in you. So please do not issue this permit. Thank you so much for your time.
Ms. Nepples? Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Nettles? Or Nepples?
Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. We spent 4 days flying back from the West Coast and missed the message that we weren't to speak if we had already spoken before, but I can't miss the opportunity to really beg you to do the right thing. I don't live on Main Street. I live on Oak Ridge, but I walk my friend's dog often to the lovely waterfront park. I think there are families in this community who have really done the best for the community, providing that park, you as leaders building the nature trail. I just beg you not to let it be ruined. There is some question over whether these storage units attract crime. A friend called me in the last month to tell me all of his belongings were stolen from a storage unit that the owner assured him was very well guarded and very well protected. They are known to be hotbeds for not only drug exchanges, illegitimate uses, like in my neighborhood in Maryland, people were living in them, locked a child in a storage unit when the parents didn't have adequate child care. I mean, they're just not things that you put in the middle of a residential area. So I beg you to do the right thing here.
Excuse me, ma'am, could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Harriet Nettles, 7245 Oak Ridge Place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Meakin?
Good evening, Council. My name is George Meekins. I'm at 4480 Main Street. That's right next to Joe and Rosie, and right there next to the property in question. I just wanted to lend my voice to my neighbors and friends that have spoken about the many issues that affect this decision, the economic impact to people with their properties, whether it's the sale of the property and value of the property for that sort of purpose, or for rentals. There's the flooding issue. We already have flooding problems with the current environment without impacting that with a lot of concrete and steel in our backyards. There's, as mentioned, the proximity to the nature of trails and the impact on the wetlands right there. There's the infrastructure is not really amenable to this type of facility, and as Rosie already articulated very well, it's turning a residential area into an industrial type of area. So I just wanted to vehemently oppose the variance, and thank you very much.
Ms. Carmody?
Mr. Mayor, Town Council members, I also spoke the last time, so I'll keep this real short.
Excuse me, ma'am, can I get your
Oh, I'm
name?
sorry, Susan Carmody, 4485 Main Street.
Thank you.
It's right across from Daisy, and I've owned that residence for the past 28 years. So once again, my neighbors and I urge you to protect the existing mixed residential character of our neighborhood, and to be cognizant of all the safety concerns that we've brought up. And I urge you to accept the Planning Commission's unanimous recommendation and not approve this request, so that our neighborhood compatibility, our property values, and our citizen safety are ensured. And we all thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Talbert?
Yes, sir, and I have a communication here that was asked to be read into the record. To Mayor Leonard and members of the council, I was one of several hundred citizens who signed the petition presented to the Planning Commission concerning the potential of a conditional use permit being granted for the construction of a storage facility in an R3 zone. I agree with the findings of the Planning Commission in their decision to deny such a request. Many reasons for the denial were offered at the meeting: safety issues, environmental issues, traffic issues, and the concern that the property value of the homes in these residential neighborhoods would be affected. I urge you to follow the decision of the Planning Commission and deny this permit. I will add that people applying for the permit offered very sketchy drawings and plans that were presented and were not there to explain anything. My concern as a full-time resident is that this is a dangerous precedent if it is allowed. Many of us, myself and my husband included, chose to retire to this lovely community because there are still some unspoiled residential areas. We worked hand in hand with DER and conservationists to make sure we did not endanger wildlife or wetlands when we built our home. I'm glad that the Planning Commission took these things into consideration when they denied this request. We need to be forward-thinking. I cannot imagine how I would have felt if this project were considered for our neighborhood. And if you allow it, who's to say that it won't happen? I can only hope that others would step up as petition signers have to do what is right here for everyone. This is a commercial building and it should be located in a commercial area that has roads that will allow for easy access. That is certainly not the case here. I think of the effect on the wildlife and environment near the trail, near the nature trail, and it saddens me. I think of children not being safe, neighborhoods with overwhelming traffic, and a loss of what is most wonderful about this community. I put this question to you. Would you want this in your neighborhood? I think not. So let's respect that other residents deserve that same consideration. I thank you for your time, and I urge you to deny this permit and put to rest any consideration of requests like this in the future. Let's try to think about the future and what we want this lovely island to look and feel like. I thank you for listening to this letter and your service. Sincerely, Paula J. Nees, 6417 Canal Lane, Chincoteague, Virginia.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to close the public comment portion of the hearing. Council have any comments? No comments. So we don't need anything, do we?
You need a motion.
Motion to
either approve or deny the permit, the conditional use permit.
Okay.
I'd like to say something, Mr. Mayor. It goes without saying that Mr. Stubbs is a well-respected businessman of the island. Between the seafood business he had years ago and the hotel business that he has now and everything. But I didn't need to hear anything from anybody to know that this was not a good idea. Mainly for the fact because of where it's proposed. In my opinion, it is not the place for it here on the island. It's not conducive to the neighborhood, and I make a motion to deny Mr. Stubbs' request.
A motion to deny.
I'll second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion state aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on. And if you, I'm going to pause here for a second. If you don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, now's your chance.
Thank you.
Have an empty hall.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Stranger things than that, especially this.
All right, now that we have the rooms to ourselves.
Man, glad everybody stuck around.
Yeah.
Now can we order pizza?
Next on the agenda is public comment. If anybody would like to step to the microphone, you're more than welcome to. No takers? Or Ray?
I would just like to take a minute to compliment the volunteer fire company, emergency management, police department, Mr. Mayor, his boy, all those who took part in that exercise last week. It just shows what the town can do, what has the town done in the past for all of us. And it was a classic example of man helping man, especially our service personnel. If you've been there, you know what it's like. And any sort of support you get is a godsend. And this was a godsend to the families. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir. I'll entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Staff reports. Mr. Talbert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First up, Civic Center, which is now a part of the town government for the first time in its existence. In March, the inspection of the Civic Center with the intention of identifying and prioritizing capital improvements. What we identified, the HVAC system is certainly in need of improvement, and is first on our list. If the building is going to become viable or going to remain viable, we need to be able to heat and cool that building when we have an event to where people are comfortable. Harvey and I met with a representative of Train on site to review the facility's requirements and current system deficiencies and devise a plan for replacement. As a result, we have a plan for replacement. It's pretty much decided on site what to do, and the representative from Train is currently working on the technicalities of that plan, but it would involve replacing the boiler and chiller, which are two very expensive items, with a couple of heat pumps that are controllable by electric via a programmable thermostat, which can be controlled from off-site. Second in line on our capital improvement plan would be to install a modern audio-visual system where we have maybe put some acoustic treatment in that building, some modern audio that can be controlled with Bluetooth, and certainly a LCD projector that's capable of displaying large format images across the room. That would only serve to make this building even with the other facilities of that type in the region. Also, what we've identified for both that building and this building, and they were both, as you probably remember, designed and built in the same year, 1996. Same company, same architect. Both buildings have a problem with their roofs. It's not a critical problem, but it is a problem that is going to be left unattended. It's going to be worse every year. And that is, we've got the mansard part of these roofs is rusting considerably, and so we've determined it's because there were no gutters or downspouts put on the building originally. So we've engaged a local contractor to help us design a fix for that, and he's actually someone who probably worked on the building originally when they were built. And we're hopeful that we can come up with something that is where we're able to fix these roofs rather than replace the entire thing at a much lower cost. And as you can see the pictures of some of the roofs taken in March, they are desperately in need of some repair. Looking at the financial report, we're doing well. Revenues are higher than normal at this point in years past, and mostly due to meals and transit occupancy taxes, which are significantly exceeding their budgeted values. We're low right now in expenses on mosquito control and trolley. They'll catch up as the season gets started in the spring, and our roads expenses are going to catch up here fairly quickly as France can get started on the paving projects that we've left. So other than that, our financial situation there's nothing to be alarmed about whatsoever. Looking at meals and transit occupancy, we still, in the month of February, and of course these numbers are for the month of February, the reporting in March for the month of February, we still exceeded last year as well as the 3-year average in both meals and transient, and which is amazing to me if you look around at what the restaurants are able to do right now because of the labor shortage. It's amazing to me they still did last year and the year before. So my hat's off to that whole industry here on the island. Building and zoning, Mark still finding time to issue 40 permits last month, for a total value of construction of exceeding $1 million. So still going strong there. And I'd like to also, I experienced something new last Wednesday during the emergency that we had, and I went down to the town dock and was able to witness EMS and our local police officers as well as a lot of local citizens do their thing. And it was very smooth, very calm. EMS and the town police did an excellent job of taking care of this very unusual emergency, and also the citizens that we had. Everybody just did a wonderful job, and I'd like to compliment both of them here tonight. That being said, when it's Harvey's turn, Harvey has a little something in addition to what he normally does, so it'll take just an extra few minutes. But
You gonna dance for us?
No,
I don't know.
Sorry,
I don't know if he's got that on the agenda, but you know.
and I'm not going to sing for you.
I didn't bring any once.
But
That's scary.
Chief Fisher is up.
Yep. All right,
Thank you
bro.
all. And I also would like to comment and thank everybody, Mr. Mayor, your son, all the volunteers that night that went up there, the EMS, Brian himself came out that night, and him and Bobby established the command post. Everything went about as smooth, I think, as I've seen in quite a while. My department, of course, thank the guys that were working that night. We all held everything together, and it went great. I'm glad to be a part of that, and just thank everybody for everything that went through that night. Getting on to the report, on March the 7th of this year, 7th through the 11th, Corporal Gladding attended in-service down at the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and also PFC Jeff Stevens. He taught standardized field sobriety tests. We had sent him to that class, I believe, a few months ago to teach standardized field sobriety testing. And in Virginia, whenever you go for an instructorship, you have to pull an apprenticeship, basically teach for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. And he taught underneath the state police, Sergeant Renus, and one of their troopers from across the bay. And we got a very good report back on Jeff that he done very well, and they're interested in him coming out and teaching at the academy. And that does not happen often. So we're trying to get that set up, I think in June, I believe. So that went really well also. On the 23rd, we held our annual Senior Luncheon. This year, instead of at Don's, we held it at the firehouse. Thank you to the fire company for that also. And it went very well. I believe we had, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was either 120 some or 130 some people that actually showed up, and then we had about another, I believe, 30 or 40 takeouts that we delivered. So that was very successful. I think everybody had a good time. They got to see the firehouse and stuff. A lot of them probably had never seen it, so that went really well also. The 29th, 30th, and the 31st, I was in Accomack teaching a class on speed measurement. We only have 2 speed measurement instructors here on the shore. I'm one of them, and another one's down in Northampton County. So that's something that I'm going to be looking to also get one of our officers to take up to, because that was a long 3 days. I don't mind doing it, but when I've got other stuff to do, so I think if nothing else, maybe if I get one of the other officers here into it, then we can kind of tag team it and take care of it a little bit better. And then on the 30th, Sergeant Adams, he held a class for the 3 C's. This is seems to be a yearly thing that they're requesting on fraud awareness. And Thomas is let me think, mine just went blank. But he's like a neighborhood watch, sort of crime prevention specialist. He's our crime prevention specialist, and and he does real good on that. And like I said, this is the 2nd year that they've asked him to come back for that and teach him a class on fraud, which, as we all know, seems to be increasing every year. So he stays up to that. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer anything I can.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
All right, Harvey, you're up.
No singing or dancing. Okay, in case you haven't noticed, spring has. It doesn't seem possible. 6 weeks ago, we were pushing snow. Now we're. Well, you didn't teach me how to use this.
2 buttons, you'll figure it out.
Now, we've actually started mosquito control operations for the year in the form of larvicide. We've actually started mowing already. We've started a lot of vegetation control. So we kind of went from A to B overnight. So a lot of what you see in my monthly report involves gearing up for what I anticipate is a very busy spring, summer season. One thing of particular note on here, and it kind of ties in with what Mr. Talbot said about Mark Biden being busy. We actually installed 10 new water services in the month of March. A lot of times we don't install 10 in a year. So somebody's building something somewhere. Paving operations, depending on the weather, because they're calling for rain, of course. But tomorrow we're supposed to start paving North Main Street. Probably take 2 days. Then we're going to jump over and do Ridge and Division. North Main is from Misty Meadows up to the turnaround. Ridge Road is from basically just south of Church Street to the Bunning Road intersection. So we will try to be as unobtrusive as possible during all that. Mike, you ready for this special? Nah. Two buttons, huh? Brianna's Kindness Park. Hopefully you've been over there in the recent past and seen all the development. I wanted to flip through where we're at, where we've been with Brianna's Park, and hopefully highlight some few issues and bring you up to speed on some things. This whole project has evolved very much so from when we first started. The original design, the initial design, obviously there on the left. Small soccer field on one end, playground. All of this is on the what is now the soccer field and the restrooms, with the pavilion across the street, across the parking lot. You know the current configuration. The soccer field been moved. The restrooms, everything basically has been moved, which actually gave us a whole lot more room and allowed us to do the design we wound up with. This was the towards the end of the site work. And one thing here I want you to take particular note of. April 27th, 2021. It seems like we've been talking about Brianna's Kindness Park for the past 15 years. We haven't. Everything I'm going to show you tonight's been accomplished in less than a year, despite COVID. And we actually had a key contractor out, lost for about a month because he had COVID, despite the material shortages, despite the weather, despite the fact that we have treated and distributed over 120 million gallons of water since that time, kept roads passable, snow operations, so on. You know the story. So again, the date, April 27th. From that point forward, we began the installation of the playground. A lot more than just installing equipment. You can see the stone piled up there. That entire playground has approximately 6 inches of 57 stone under it for drainage. And I'm pleased the way it's performing so far. Some of these gully washers we've had, you can go over there a day later and it's no water anywhere. So again, playground installation, installation of the subsurface. More playground installation, and again, please note who you see is out there installing all this equipment. We had to hire a certified inspector to bless our work, but the entire playground structure was installed with Public Works employees. Not their forte, but they did well. More playground installation. The top scene there on the left is actually the footer for the Cypress spinner you see there in the lower right. Cypress spinner, as you can see, this was taken during the grand opening, or the dedication, I should say, courtesy of Ms. Richardson. That the Cypress spinner is one of the most popular items in the playground. There you go. What happened then?
Wrong button.
Obviously. Yeah, I know.
There you go.
There you go. More playground installed, the mulch. I think we put a little over 300 cubic yards of mulch in the playground. Moved over to the soccer field. The goals are in place. The bleachers are in place. The fence around the field, which I'm sorry I didn't get to update. It's not in here, but that was actually completed today. The soccer goals, the bleachers, and, well, I shouldn't say the bleachers and the fence were courtesy of Mr. Landsberger. Thank you, Mr. Landsberger. The adult exercise yard, in its infant stages, the first machine, that is completely complete. I actually see quite a few people using it more and more as the weather improves. As you're probably aware, we actually paved a section of Smith Street. That was done late last fall. Made quite an improvement to the entire neighborhood. Parking lot, paving, the actual markings and everything were done by town employees using thermoplastic, it's called. But the paving was done by Branscombe of Eastern Shore. Bless you.
Spring.
We're in the final phases, believe it or not, of restroom construction. There is the actual footer the town employees placed, the slab for the restroom, which again was done in-house. Install the septic system, and that's basically where we are with the restroom today. Hope to get the doors in this week. We expect to have the entire restroom finished, and depending on a contractor, a certain contractor I'm waiting on, who shall remain nameless, to do some of the electrical work. And hopefully plan is right now we'll be done with the restroom completely in 4 to 6 weeks at the most. Kind of a recap, a summary. We've spent approximately 650 public works man hours. That's in addition to that long list I gave you a few minutes ago. The remaining work over there is the restroom, obviously. There's the trail that goes around the perimeter and the erection of the pavilion. And I still haven't quite figured out how we managed to do this, but looks like we're going to come on right in that budget despite what materials have done. So, in a nutshell, that's where we are with Brianna. That's where we've been and where we've headed. A lot of people involved. I won't read every one of them, but probably the most important one up there is the Shanktay community, because they've been very supportive of the whole project. Other than that, I'll be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Good job.
Yep, very nice.
Thank you.
It gives y'all satisfaction to ride by there and see the kids.
It does. Yeah, and it's thankful to say, even the way the weather's been, there's not very often you go by there and check on it that there's not somebody on the playground.
Harvey, one of my bus kids said he'd rather go to Brianna Park than go to Memorial Park.
Yeah. I think a lot of them start to say that. Thank you. Ask a question. The soccer field you're showing. Is that regulation? Was that a youth 7? It's for small. Under 7? No, I think it's a Y7. Yeah, it is a regulation, but it's a youth regulation. I'd like Donald to know which age bracket it is. Any permanent or net structures? Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that is absent is the line.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll start by reiterating what others have said tonight. Cannot give enough thanks to the boaters that were involved last Wednesday night. They were key in helping us accomplish what needed to be accomplished. So again, could not have been done without those folks. And then the coordination from everyone else, the volunteer fire company, EMS, the police department, the Navy, the Coast Guard. There were a lot of moving parts that assembled quickly and were key in coordinating the event and hopefully reducing the loss of life that there was. Unfortunately, there was one life lost, which makes it even more of an unfortunate situation. But again, I think the situation would have been much worse without those involved. And again, those folks that volunteered to go out on the boat that night they were instrumental. They were key in helping with the situation. So again, I want to thank all those folks. Beginning this evening here, from your report, there were 4 more added from when the report was submitted. However, that did put us 1 less than March of last year. That's the first time I've said that in well over a year, about a year and a half. Okay, 1 less. Okay, so I'll say it again. But again, that's still running on the busier side of things compared to what we were at pre-COVID. Is this the new normal? Probably so. Certainly, we are seeing more and more folks coming to the area. And unfortunately, some of our residents are not getting any younger. So again, there's health problems that exist with that. The Cpd Senior Luncheon, my folks were able to help assist with the homebound deliveries. I'm not sure what they were talking about there, whether they were talking about getting something to eat later or what. But anyway, it was great to be able to work together with CPD and actually help them out during their luncheon. One other thing before I get to that that I wanted to point out here this evening real quick was with our planning and procedures. We're working on those plans that are in your packet. They're required. There's many plans that go into operating emergency management and EMS, and these are just a few of our EMS plans. And again, staff members work those, and we try to update them yearly if possible. And also from our part-time logistics there, we did advertise. Unfortunately, I think we have fell into where Chief Fisher has and other departments across the country. We advertised for part-time EMTs and paramedics, and we only received 3 applications, which is the first time that that's ever happened, that we had that few apply. So I don't know, stay tuned, but hopefully we can pick up a couple out of that at least. And the main reason that we did that, again, we're using the same pool of money that you all have approved. It's just we need more men and women to fill those hours. And that's just becoming more and more problematic. But we'll get it done one way or another. The State EMS Advisory Board that I was appointed to, attended my first meeting in March, 10th and the 11th. Committee meetings one day, committee and then board meeting the next day. I'll just give you a quick recap just to show you what's going on in Richmond right now from the EMS side of the house. Of course, staff, OMS staff gave their quarterly report to the Legislative and Planning Committee. Also within that, we discussed House Bill 874, which was actually labeled as a tax credit, for AED purchases. So if you were to purchase an automated external defibrillator for your own personal use, which you can do, the bill read that you would receive a tax credit. Well, in some of the tax code, that gets a little gnarly. So this came back to legislative and planning because the actual bill was left on the table to the 2023 session. So it's our job to work on it and come up with some different ideas and wording. The actual tax credit would become a tax deduction instead of a tax credit. But the whole idea behind the bill is to get more and more AEDs on the street for the simple fact that AEDs save lives. When someone goes into a cardiac arrest, CPR and AEDs are the key, and the quicker those two are mirrored together, the more likelihood we have of a survivability rate. So again, that's why that bill is really important. And another one that an actual subcommittee was formed on was to define EMS as an essential service in the Commonwealth. Nowhere in any of the wording of any legislation is EMS defined as an essential service. And after COVID, I think everyone learned that EMS became a pretty essential service as that relates. Now, other laws, certainly if you read between the lines with laws, we all know how that goes, you can see EMS as an essential service, but actual wording is not there. So that's another one that's going to be worked on to try to get that wording together and get a bill patron, hopefully by August, because that's when a lot of the wording for bills and stuff needs to be together. And then another thing that we worked through the Office of the Attorney General, our assigned lawyer from there, Ms. Samuels, concerning information on House Bill 81 and Senate Bill 436, which is the statewide telehealth plan, which has become huge since COVID. There are more and more uses now of telehealth that are becoming more and more practical. And not only from that standpoint, but from an EMS standpoint, there are many different programs now that are coming down where telehealth will be used between EMS and hospitals and EMS and primary care physicians to maybe at some point alleviate some transports. Question is, who's going to pay for that? And again, a lot of that bill and legislation is addressing that. Workforce and Development Committee, discussion on the EMS Officer 1 program. There's been a lot of programs for folks moving up the chain in the fire service, also in the police service, but there's been very little from the EMS side of the house over the years. Typically, fire and EMS mirror, and suddenly you'll take a fire captain and make them an EMS captain. Now we have a program moving forward to actually mature EMS officers for the EMS programs. And the other thing, which is huge, we've talked about for years, but of course is still on front and center, is recruitment and retention for EMS providers. Trying to keep that recruitment, getting new faces in, both career and volunteer, but also once we get them here, how do we retain them? So there was a lot of robust talk on that, and that will move forward. From the board meeting itself, of course, the reports from the Virginia Department of Health, the Deputy Commissioner Hicks was there that day, as well as Director Brown and his staff from the Office of EMS. We received a great report from VCU's Performance Management Group. They did an EMS needs assessment, and some of the things that have changed over the years are just amazing, and some of the numbers that goes with that. Of course, the officers were elected for the 2022 year. 13 committees reported out. There are 13 committees within the board, so you can imagine what kind of report out that can do. And then FOIA information, again, from Office of Attorney General Samuels. She was able to give us some more updated information on that. So some quick action items, of course, amendment approval, but a unanimous change in the format to the scope of practice document, which was put forth by the Medical Direction Committee, so that some of the more in-depth skills require a few more check-offs and training moving forward now within the state EMS plan. And then there was also a motion to have an electronic meeting attendance policy. Again, COVID set not only our council back, but all the boards and so forth across the state. So now there's actually an attendance policy that was tabled until next meeting, which will be May 5th and 6th, and we'll take that up and many other things from there, including Chapter 32 of the state EMS plan, which will have to be adopted by the full board no later than August. So there's a lot of things moving forward at the state level within EMS. Emergency management. I'd like to say that was a little slower now since it's April, but it's just, things just keep moving forward. So COVID-19, we're scaling back on that monitoring a little bit. Again, that's kind of become our new normal, and I'll give a quick brief out on that in a moment. Of course, weather monitoring. Still working on the boating incident after action report. Some of those ideas that we had already discussed amongst some of the members were actually put into play last Wednesday night, which again contributes to our success. The hazard mitigation plan that I had listed in your report, that's at FEMA right now. Once FEMA approves it and sends it back, I will get it to you all for review, and then we'll need approval of that. Still participating in the Unified Command with military environmental partners until Navy salvage is completed with the removal of the aircraft. You saw in yesterday's press briefing from the Navy that all the fuel had been removed from the aircraft. There are no environmental concerns. No fuel was spilled, so things are moving along there. We just still need to keep the lieutenant in our thoughts and prayers, and his family and his Navy family. Certainly we'll do an after action for the aircraft incident as well. Again, that's how we learn, that's how we move forward. And then fireworks and pony penning are still on our docket. COVID, the 7-day positivity rate as of today is 3.2%. If you go back to last March, and I apologize for the March 7, last April, the 5th, at the top there, we were at 6.4%. So we're even better than we were last April. So things are moving in the right direction. There were 481 total reported cases in our zip code, and that daily zip code reporting ended on March the 14th. VDH no longer reports the daily zip code in that any longer. So I take that as a good sign that we're not having to track all that. So what now? So all 5 to 17-year-olds and above are vaccine eligible for the Pfizer vaccine. Our local PPE supplies, and this will be hopefully the last night you hear me say this, are stable, and we don't have to worry about that. So folks need to continue to get vaccinated that haven't. Your booster shot for 12-year-old and over after 5 months of completing the primary series. And for those older than 50 years old, you can get a second booster 4 months after your first booster. So that's a new thing that came out from the CDC. So in summary, EMS remains on the busy side. We need to be weather aware because, again, we've got the chance of severe weather now with the spring storm season coming up, and before you know it, we'll be talking tropical storm and hurricane season again. There's still there's still the potential for some COVID waves. We're going to move into this just like we move into a flu. So COVID's not gone, it's not over, but we've learned how to mitigate it to make it more palatable for our daily living. And then again, that updated booster guidance is in play. Any questions? No? I'm ready. Thank you.
Thank you for what you did with it. Thank you. Keep us straight. All right, moving on. Committee reports. Vice Mayor Bott, budget personnel.
Nothing to report because we're handling it all later in the meeting.
Correct. Ordinance, Mr. Savage.
Well, we have the ordinance committee meeting on March 10th, and during that meeting, we rewrote the existing ordinance, and of course that was sent on for consideration to the council during the workshop meeting on March 17th. That's about all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Public safety.
Yes, we met. Let me find it here in our packet. Basically, meeting that night was, we had Chief Fisher in here to talk about his promotions that have been long overdue for his department, and the funding for 2 extra officers, and where that funding would come from. After that, Chief Fisher was going to in the next 2 weeks. So that committee meeting was on March the 9th. In the next 2 weeks, advertise in-house for his promotions. And I believe that's done, Robbie?
Yes.
All done and settled? Other than that, wasn't anything else to report on that committee. Everything was handled that night.
All righty, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our March 7th and March 17th workshop meetings. So move.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all. All right, moving on. Budget. Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the fourth and hopefully final draft of the budget that you'll be seeing before we approve it. The big add to this fourth draft was the fact that we now are considering the center as part of the town government. So we've added a 5th fund to the accounting drafts that we have in the office, and that fund will be center fund. Basically what we did is took the center's budget from the last few years and incorporated that into the same style that we use to budget for town functions. The highlights of that budget, in the near term, at least in the near term, I anticipate contributing to the center from meals and transient at the same levels that we currently are. And that for a few reasons. One, we need to maintain what we have there, but we also, as I mentioned earlier in my staff report, want to do some capital improvements there. The center, the authority did have some savings, along with about $240,000, I think. Those funds will revert to the town on the conversion date of July 1st. We plan to use those funds to fund the capital improvements, and we're probably going to need more, so we're looking at other ways at getting some funding for those. At one time, the authority employed 3 people. I think it was 2 full-time and 1 part-time. We've converted that to a single full-time position, and part of that position, 25% of that position's time, will spend time in the town office doing things for the town and not the center. We anticipate that FTE using only 75% of that FTE for actual center applications. Those are the highlights. I'll run down here through the actual budget. Only the things, of course, highlighted in yellow are the differences between the 3rd draft and the 4th. You can see there that 75% of the salary is under the center tab. If we back up to the general government, you'll see that 25% of that salary is in general government. Right there. Also, you'll see that item transfer to the Civic Center Fund, that normally would be $110,000. That's what's been capped for several years now. That is reduced by 25% of the anticipated salary for the person we intend to hire. Back down to the center's budget. We've added some money for marketing. When we establish a marketing partner, we anticipate having to spend some money to market this. Other things like utilities, telephone, internet, that sort of thing, we've pretty much used the numbers that the center was using before. We will save on accounting because we already have our own accounting people. We should save, although I don't have a number yet, we should save on insurance because we're combining it with our umbrella coverage, but the Versa has yet to give me what that number will be, so I'm using their number from last year knowing that covers us. And you can see under capital improvements at the bottom what we anticipate: the HVAC, interior painting, new audiovisual system, and some renovations for the kitchen, what we anticipate those to be. Hoping it doesn't go too much over that, but we're going to do what we can with that money. And that is basically the fourth draft of the budget. That being said, in anticipation of approval of that budget, without too many additions or alterations, I've taken the liberty of preparing an advertisement here for your approval of advertising that budget for a public hearing that would happen on May 2nd. Once the budget's advertised, it would have to be advertised at least 7 days prior to the hearing, and then also after the hearing, it has to be another 7 days before you can actually vote to approve it. So you would be voting to approve this at the workshop meeting in May. So what we're asking here is you to approve the fourth draft of the budget and then approve the budget advertisement, which will go to the paper tomorrow if you approve.
Any discussion on the budget? I'll entertain a motion to approve the calendar. We can look at it in May. So move. Second. Motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All righty.
Would that be also approving the budget advertisement, correct?
Yes. All right. Next up is comments, and I'm going to take advantage of this and go first. First, I want to apologize. My wife has given me her nasal stuff that's going around. I'm about over it. Almost wish I had COVID again.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. COVID was nothing compared to this. I'm like, God, science is
Careful what
killing
you
me.
do. Yeah.
I could use a week by myself. I just want to go on the record and thank everybody that worked Wednesday night. Being in the middle of it, you see how smooth and what our community does. It was not the first night of our maritime assistance, but it showed up. Cpd Volunteer Fire Company, they were Johnny on the spot, fast acting, used their heads and adapted to the situation. And it came to fruition. Water temperature that night was 47 degrees, I think. Doesn't take long at 47 degrees for hypothermia to set in. And it was just a matter of minutes before the two were found and brought back to the ambulance that was standing by waiting for them to take them. Just as a news update, the one pilot that was injured pretty severely is doing well. His parents flew in from California, and so he seems to be improving dramatically. But I just can't say enough about the island and how the island came together to support everybody that was working on that accident. Surrounding communities, that we learned some stuff by the accident that happened in January. We have some local assets rather than trying to wait for folks to come across the bay. Even though they got lost, they did show up. They provided a very big help to us. And the one individual, the diver from Ocean City, he played a major part in the recovery. So I just want to say thanks to the CVFC and EMS, town cops. They were on the spot, keeping everybody away from the place. It was just a wonder to see everything come together and how it acted and how it ended up. So thank y'all. All righty, Mr. Savage.
Yeah, you covered everything I was going to say. I think y'all have done a great job. Well, you know, the EMS, the police, and fire company, and I mean the volunteers just just stood up to the case and done a great job, and it shows the resiliency of the people we have here on the island, the workers we have here on the island, and I just can't commend them enough. That's all I have.
Good evening.
Like Harvey said, the Brianna Connors Park community working together, like you say, it wasn't no small project. And appreciate members on the council voting for to go ahead and fund things too. So you all had something to work with. And like you say, it's just amazing when you get together, what kind of big stuff, that's big stuff you can do. And I appreciate the council, the workers in public works, the whole community. Oh man, people volunteered this just big time. You know, the fundraisers, and there's still community stuff. You got in the different shops and stuff that's got Brianna Connors t-shirts and stuff on it, you know. But like you said, that's what we got to do. And like you say, even in a country that it seems like we're far apart, people of all backgrounds come together. When you can do that, it's amazing what you can do. Thank you.
Billy?
Just echo all the sentiments about what happened last week and all the cooperation by all the departments. Great job by everybody.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Bott? Ditto on everything that's been said. Ms. Powell?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I was out of town to a memorial service Wednesday night, and was in the middle of that memorial service, and we get automated, dispatches on our phone, and when it buzzed, I looked down and I thought, I'm not reading that right. That's not right. Airplane crash. And I'm like, I jumped up immediately. I started, calling some people back home, and for the next few hours, I was either texting, on the phone, buzzing, and when I got back to my hotel room, still, you never think something like this going to happen, around your hometown. I don't know why we don't think that, but the next day, after things had calmed down a little bit, and I was talking to a few people back here, talking to Chief Lappin, talking to Chief Fisher here, and things. My heart was here the whole time, and I'll tell you, for 48 hours while I was gone, my heart was up here in my throat, and I don't think it ever left. And if you were listening to the scanner, which I know a lot of people were, and people were out buzzing around, you witnessed, or you saw, or you heard the best of the best. I would put our company, our volunteers, our police department, our EMS providers up against anybody any day. And I tell you, the local people that responded on their own, in their boats, that know up the bay like nobody else knows it, I tell you, it's such a tragic accident to happen, but I couldn't be more proud to live where I live and see these people do what they do all day long. And thank you.
Ms. Richardson?
Well, I think everybody said everything, but I was listening to the scanner, and I do know the water. I can't take a boat. I probably could go up there. I might run short a little bit, but I've been up the bay many a time with Pete and a lot of people, so I know it. And as the scanner was going and they were saying where they were, I knew exactly what they were talking about, And to hear the correspondence back and forth, I knew that they had them. They had the people. They rescued them. And I heard it when they rescued them. And I know I've heard some comments, and I probably shouldn't say this, about the news wanted some information. And to me, that was not the time. You were there. They were there doing the best they could. They were working a tragic scene. And the news media wanted you to stop what you're doing and answer them. So I did hear that, and our chief of the fire department, he answered, he said, he paused and he said, no, we're working. That's all he said, and then they took it and blew it out of proportions. So that's the truth. I heard that on the scanner. But our fellas, which they all know how I feel about them, I don't have to say. But when it comes down to actually doing, they're there for you. And they acted with professionalism. And even the people that were up in Ocean City, I know where Georgiana Landing, our brother has a place right there on the water. So I knew exactly what they were doing. So they needed a little help too. But I know my neighbor, and you all know him too. And he talks about, oh, was it public landing? I said, no, it's not public landing. It's straight across from George Island. I thought he knew the water. But anyway.
So you're saying you're not going out in the boat with them?
No. I'll take my chances and go. I've been on a wave runners up to public landing. I've went into we get up there a few times. Yeah, I just respect the water very much. But to think about what has happened, like with the hunters out there, and then this to happen. It wasn't the best ending, but everybody learned something from it. And as you learn from it, you get better. So I thank them all. That's enough.
All righty, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. Motion second, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.